I'm here at DappCon 22 in Berlin. It is the end of the conference. People are getting drinks. There's an energy in the air here that is quite unique because the merge is happening in just a few hours. But I'm here with Stefan George. Hey, how you doing?
Great, thanks for having me.
CTO of Gnosis.
Yeah.
And organizer of this conference. I mean, Gnosis has been organizing this conference for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
There's lots to say about DappCon. And the thing that I think is really cool about DappCon this year, because there was a 2-year or 3-year hiatus since the last one.
I think 2019 was the years now,
Yeah.
2022. So yeah,
So you skipped for
almost
2
3
years.
years. Like yes, yeah.
But like, it's like DappCon is like a new DappCon because it's Gnosis Chain DappCon. And it's like Gnosis Ecosystem DappCon. And that all happened in the last 2 years.
Right.
So like, what's the significance of this, and like, what are the plans for DappCon moving forward?
Yeah, so for us, DappCon's really like a conference to bring all like the Dapp developers together. It was kind of the origin of the story of DappCon. There was a lot of like conferences to discuss like core infrastructure, clients, like progress on core protocol, but there was not really a conference to really focus on dApps, on use cases. It actually, like, no user comes to a blockchain to use a blockchain. Every user comes to actually do something useful. And we felt like we need to put more emphasis on this, and that's how like DappCon came about. And yeah, of course, now recently we merged with XDAI, and XDAI became Gnosis Chain, and now Gnosis Chain is also applying the merge a little bit later than Ethereum actually.
Yeah.
But of course, this also means there's even more focus on ecosystem development, on dApps, and we see Gnosis being, or like always has been, very aligned with like what Ethereum does. Now we use even the same technology for the network, so we are working together with the same teams, contributing to the same teams, and so yeah, we hope DappCon allows us to especially now after 2 years of pandemic, to finally meet again. I think things move much faster when you meet people face to face.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big opportunity here. So I spent hours just talking to people, and it was great to catch up and see what they're up to now, and how we can work together. And I think that's been extremely fruitful for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be back in Berlin and like see all the Berlin people.
Yes, yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, it's funny. A lot of people think I live here somehow, but no,
Yeah.
like, it's good to see you
You fit
again.
very well. Yeah, you lived like, yeah.
But yeah, with regards to the conference, so this is going to be like it's a yearly thing now. One of the things I think that is really salient about 2 years ago when I was at the last DappCon and now is like that you're talking about dApps, right? And like there's just so many more dApps and actual people building businesses and doing things on blockchains that just like were sort of dreams 2 years ago. And I think Martin mentioned this a little bit in his opening statement at the beginning of the conference.
Yeah.
And one of the really interesting things that I saw here is just the use of POAPs, right? Like I got my POAP card. You trade POAPs with people, and POAPs are being used by music labels and the film industry, and like it's growing into this thing that goes far beyond just us crypto nerds. And there's lots of other examples of this.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you've seen grow in the last 2 years that are now kind of like it's happening?
It's very encouraging to see like finally we bridge the gap to the real world. Like it's not only crypto for crypto nerds, but it's now, as you said, like POAPs are issued by many events. And I think for me, one of the things that I never considered taking off as much as they did is NFTs related to POAPs. I think this allowed us to get a lot of new users into the space and enable a lot of new use cases. And I still think we just scratched the surface. Right now, it's mostly about collectibles and artworks, but there's a lot more you can do with NFTs.
Yeah.
And I feel that has been really encouraging to have this connection to a lot new users and a lot new people, industries coming in, that has really shaped also the last couple of years. And I think contributed also to the enormous growth that we had. And that's why now like DappCon was very quickly sold out. like there's a lot of attention on our space, which is great. Allows us to move much faster. And I feel like we have to also double down on this. Like we have to get more real world use cases. Right now we are experimenting on the payment protocol. So I think all these use cases that we're kind of thinking of over the last couple of years, now the tech is much more mature. We can finally do this, and we can actually finally feel like tech is not a blocker anymore for many things.
Yeah.
And now you just have to do it. You just have to build these bridges and then get the next wave of users. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gnosis has been a great incubator for lots of. I mean, like Gnosis has been working on stuff. I mean, like just for context, I think the core product that Gnosis was trying to build very early on was a prediction market.
Right.
I don't know how much of that you guys are doing now, but it seems like Gnosis, the ecosystem, has surpassed these use cases that were interesting at the time, but like the things that we can now build on Gnosis chain, like things like POAP, things like this payment system that you're talking about, which I'd like to spend a couple of minutes on. There are real world applications that can touch potentially millions of people. Not to say that prediction markets aren't interesting, or like that these kind of early primitives weren't important to leading Gnosis to where it is now, but I feel like the ecosystem and the vision that you guys are pushing forward now, it's just like so much broader and so much more tangible and like valuable in a much more broader sense.
Yeah, it's very flattering. Like, I mean, we've been trying to build a lot of things, and many things failed, to be honest. So prediction markets is one of the things that we kind of stopped doing. We still support teams that build it, but our personal time we spend now on other things. But I guess like one lesson that we learned is like if we are building tools that make our own lives easier, most likely they help others. So that's kind of also how I think Gnosis Safe came into existence. We needed ourselves. We were our own customer. And this helped a lot of like making it better and making many other people using it.
Yeah.
And then also for many different use cases.
I mean, not to mention like all the DAO tooling and all the interesting DAOs that are on Gnosis.
Right, yeah. So we turned Gnosis into Gnosis DAO. So we needed DAO tooling. So we built it. And I feel like this is usually like how you build the best products, like if you're your own customer. Fortunately now we have, again, like a lot more people coming to the space. There are a lot more customers, a lot more feedback, and just allows us to build much better products. I remember times when we had like a long-lasting bear market without any users. It was extremely difficult to build something useful because you don't get the feedback. Like it's incredibly helpful to have actually users to build great products. It's kind of obvious, but for a long time it was just not possible in crypto. Now it is, and now I think the opportunities are much more real. And I think the payment protocol is a very good example.
Yeah, so Federica was telling me about this morning, and we did an Epicenter episode this morning, kind of recapping the event, and we talked about this thing. So how does this work? Like, I'm really interested in like the technical aspects of how. So just to contextualize, so there's a Visa card that you guys are going to be issuing through an issuing service provider partner. That Visa card will allow someone to pay, as they would, but contrary to a lot of the other crypto credit cards that exist, it is the card itself is a hardware wallet. So, typically if you were using something like Monolith or one of these other cards, you sell the crypto, it gets sort of moved into a fiat wallet, and then you use that, and there's always this transaction that you have to do in order to sell your crypto at any moment in time and fund the credit card. So you've got to also think about like when's the right time, etc. But with this, the crypto is actually on the card. It gets sold at point of purchase. And then here's the thing, and this is where I think it's super interesting, because it's augmentative application of payment systems.
Yeah.
If the merchant also accepts XDAI, it just cuts through Visa. It just like goes to XDAI directly without even going through the Visa network. And I think it's brilliant, but like, how does it work?
Right.
Like,
Yes. Yeah. So as you said, like we issue a new card, or like we are not an issuer, but our partner does.
Issues the card.
And the special thing about this card is it looks on the surface, it looks like a regular Visa card, but in fact, it's also a hardware wallet. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to do regular Visa transactions. It also allows you to do transactions where you actually pay with non-custodial crypto. So you have crypto on Gnosis chain, let's say XDAI, and you go to the coffee shop and you pay wherever Visa is accepted globally, And what's happening under the hood is you actually have to sign a Gnosis chain transaction or a Gnosis chain message. And this is actually embedded into the Visa transaction itself.
Okay.
So Visa has actually like a field where you can append data.
Okay.
And then this transaction is actually processed still over Visa at this point, where then the part of the crypto transaction is going to the FX to the exchange, which then is done by us, or like this collaboration, to convert if the merchant doesn't accept crypto to fiat and sends the acknowledgement over the Visa network to the merchant that actually he received the money. So the great thing is like there's no disruption for the merchant. The merchant can still do whatever they want. The user can also pay wherever Visa is accepted, but in fact he is using crypto.
Yeah.
And of course, like the long-term vision is not to pay everything over the Visa network. The long-term vision is that merchants actually can accept crypto. And that's where like also the partner comes into play, which actually has like relationship with merchants, many merchants, lots of merchants.
Yeah.
And
so it's like a payment terminal partner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they can upgrade the software on the terminals to allow the merchant to accept crypto. And that's of course the most exciting part, like the long-term vision where you can actually build like a parallel system which actually fully is non-custodial, fully on blockchain, and that's of course the future. And I feel we need more of those initiatives where we are building bridges to old infrastructure, so we don't disrupt the user experience.
Yeah.
But we already make them users of our own system, and then eventually, if we prove that our system actually works better, then we can convert them step by step. So I like to compare it to like Skype. I was a very early Skype user, and they used it to do calls online, obviously. And at some point, Skype upgraded to like Skype out, Skype in.
Yeah.
So you could actually start
Taking
replacing your phone.
Yeah.
Like you don't need a landline anymore. You can just use only your Skype account. And today, like pretty much any call that you do, no matter if it's landline or not, like everything is going over the internet.
Yeah.
So I think similar with blockchain, we have to build bridges to the old world, ideally using the infrastructure as well, so we can actually meet somewhere in the middle of the bridge, and then eventually, eventually everything will be done over blockchain.
Yeah, it's a really cool sort of augmentative approach, I think, to using the technology in a way that people already are familiar with, using like this experience of using a card, but in the back end, it can potentially be like a crypto to crypto transaction without the person actually knowing it. And it's interesting, this kind of Visa payload thing. I have to go and look at how payment networks work now. No, that's cool. And so it's kind of weird because this video probably will get released after the merge, but without making it too, I guess, time sensitive. What do you feel about like what's about to happen here today and like?
Yeah, everyone's super excited, of course. Like, I personally waited very long for this moment to happen. There are several parties that are being organized to celebrate. We will actually open our office here in Berlin overnight, so people can stay and await the merge together. We even like a piano concert accompanying the merge itself.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very exciting. I hope everything will go well. It's very, very complex. So we came to realize how complex it is, especially when we tried to actually do the merge on Gnosis chain as well. So again, Gnosis chain is following the Ethereum roadmap. So we actually tried to front run Ethereum, doing the merge earlier than Ethereum. Turned out it's actually very complex to do this and to do it successfully. And so we have a bit of a different setup, but well, in short, like it definitely made us appreciate even more so how much work and effort it is by all the developers and parties involved to make sure that this is a smooth transition. So Gnosis chain will do it only in like 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. Once we've sort of seen what happened with the Mainnet merge and
it's like also like we come from a slightly different setup, so it requires a bit different preparation, and we have only one execution client. So the great thing about Ethereum is it's super resilient because there's many different clients, so many different execution clients and consensus clients. So if one client doesn't work, it doesn't have like a big market share, it doesn't matter. In case of Gnosis chain, there's only one execution client, and this client has to work. And if the
Which is the
Nethermind, actually Nethermind.
Okay.
So Open Ethereum still also works, but it's not prepared for the merge. So Open Ethereum is going to be deprecated.
Yeah,
so
that's
there's
right.
only one, which you really can count on. And that's Nethermind. And so yeah, we have to
So
see
then
that Nethermind
Gnosis
actually
chain,
works as expected.
Gnosis chain will become a data availability layer, and potentially where other execution layers could also deploy to it. Is that the long-term vision?
You can think of it similar to Ethereum. So similar to Ethereum, there is not the ultimate scalability solution on Gnosis chain. So the approach to scalability is also layer 2s. And so yes, Gnosis chain will become a data availability layer for many layer 2s, hopefully, that will operate. Even today, there's already optimism operational on Gnosis chain, but there will be probably many others. I still think data availability is only one use case, right? I also don't expect that for Ethereum will mainly turn into a data availability layer. There'll still be a lot of transactions going on that do other things, but for sure also data availability. Yeah.
And then, for the average developer building an application, what then becomes the advantage of building on mainnet versus Gnosis chain?
Right.
How would you articulate that as kind of like a
so
differentiating point? Is it just the ecosystem, or are there other specific, like either technical or features that Gnosis chain will enable that maybe mainnet has not incorporated in their roadmap?
Yeah, so I think the number one case is still like transaction fees are much lower on Gnosis chain compared to Ethereum. And of course, you can argue now, how does it compare to other like so-called Ethereum killers, which also offer very cheap fees? The main differentiation will be decentralization. So Gnosis chain, like we are following the Ethereum roadmap for a reason. Like the Ethereum proof of stake system is probably the system that can be the most decentralized.
Yeah.
It's like 100,000 of validators. That's something that you cannot accomplish with Tendermint or other consensus algorithms.
Yeah.
So it's like
they make different trade-offs.
Exactly. It's like super resilient, super decentralized. We actually try to also make sure that the validators are very diversified. We have now the issue, or like maybe it's not really an issue, but it's discussed as being an issue. Is the like centralization of depositors on Ethereum, where you have like Lido having like a big part of the deposits.
I think five of the top validators own like something like 60%.
Right. Yeah. So it's like basically it's Lido, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance. So those guys together.
Yeah.
They effective if they would all be compromised, Ethereum would be compromised. And for Gnosis chain, we want to make sure that we have really a super diversified set of validators. So we work with teams that try to do liquid staking but distributed. So many people can join. It's more permissionless to join.
This is being facilitated by like work that, say, Obol is doing, for instance.
For example, Obol is doing a very important part to this. And so, we will double down on technologies that allow us to create the most decentralized network, the most resilient network. And that's a very important differentiator to other, like, Ethereum competitors.
Yeah.
Again, like, to Ethereum itself, I mean, Ethereum is great. And, I think the main differentiator to Ethereum will be cheaper transaction fees, actually.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Ethereum is doing its job.
I mean, one of the things I think that in the Cosmos ecosystem people have discussed is this is an issue in Cosmos where hey, you may have 150 validators on a chain because Tendermint is deterministic finality. You can't build that out to like a fully permissionless validator set. And although there's like heterogeneous Paxos and new algorithms that might allow that to be a little bit better, but the problem remains that Coinbase and Binance and very large validators often are controlling a significant amount of the security of the chain. One of the ways that I think people have discussed in the ecosystem as potential ways to mitigate this would be to have economic incentives for validators to remain small, so some sort of slashing, or if the validator becomes too big. Is this something that could also help? Because things are going to aggregate, right? And like unless there are like people actively doing work to keep the validator set decentralized or implementing some sort of technical solution to do so, I feel like things tend to want to centralize, especially if there's adoption and like. So,
right.
how would you deal with that in the future?
Yeah, that's actually an open research question. But I agree with you. Like, ideally you have to solve it with incentives. They have to be, and of course, like we are following Ethereum 2, so we have the same incentive model as Ethereum 2, which doesn't actually solve this problem.
Yeah.
So what we're doing now is we're thinking about creating additional incentives on top of what the base layer incentives anyways are, to especially incentivize individual stakers to participate. And of course, like at some point you have to think about sustainability. But for the time being, I think we can just set incentives which will just make it a lot more attractive for like individual validators to join.
Yeah.
I feel like liquid staking is obviously taking off because of user experience. It's just the easiest, also is the most capital efficient right now, and people love it. At the same time, I think we can offer the same without having the issue of having one party controlling like how this is actually distributed among staking services.
Yeah.
So having this permissionless, liquid staking, I think, can be like a very key component to keeping it decentralized. And of course, there's still market forces or economy of scale which might lead against decentralization. So I think it will be probably like a constant fight, but we'll try. We'll see how far we can get.
Yeah. I think you guys are on a good path to getting there. Just and I mean the Gnosis ecosystem I think is very mindful of these sorts of problems, and like there's lots of really smart people on your team, but also I think in your broader community that will steward
like for
the
example
chain
one project that we've been supporting for a very long time is called Dappnode.
Yeah.
And so Dappnode makes it really easy for everyone to run their own node. This is kind of the prerequisite to actually have a decentralized network. And so we have been supporting them for a very long time, and we're subsidizing actually to buy hardware that you can run at home. So you can actually have your own validator running on your desk to validate the Gnosis chain. And we give you some GNOs for this that you can actually use to stake on the network.
Yeah.
So this was very nice. This way we got like a few hundred users just running their own machines and helping to decentralize the network, which is great. And I think these kind of initiatives we would like to double down on. And again, like what you will see from us over the next couple of months is like defining metrics of how we define decentralization. It's not only about validator count, right? Like I can spin up like 100,000 validators, but they're all my machine or all under my control. That doesn't solve anything. It's important that they are geographically in different locations. It's important that they are distributed between different ISPs. So if everything is in AWS, it doesn't really help us. So I think there are many different metrics that we will try to evaluate and then also compare to other networks to just kind of put the finger on it and try to, with incentives, to get to a better decentralization.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly like, I think in the ethos and of Gnosis and the Gnosis chain ecosystem to be as decentralized as possible. And it's certainly like, you've pushed this vision a lot. I know, like talking to Federica also, she's very, she's a strong proponent of decentralization, also privacy, and
people also, unlike sometimes I feel like I still have to educate people again, even our own industry, why decentralization matters.
Why we're here?
Like sometimes like I just need a token.
Yeah.
No, it's like of course decentralization matters, especially if you want to do large scale things. Let's say the payment network, for instance. If you would run this on a network where very few VCs are controlling basically the network, then it's very unlikely that you will ever get to a scale where you get like different banks into this system to issue those cards. Like it has to be credibly neutral.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I think this credible neutrality is something that we want to have to allow really like permissionless innovation. Like if Gnosis shuts down the validators, the network is not going to disappear.
Yeah.
And so I think that's super important. It's not only about being like reliable, but also just actually being fully permissionless, and that only works if the network is actually decentralized.
Yeah. Well, Stefan, thank you so much
thank you,
for doing this.
Yes,
and,
of course.
I look forward to next year's
DappCon
and coming to Berlin again.
It's going to be at the same place again. Thanks.
Yeah.
So it's going to be good.
It's a pretty good venue.
All right.
Enjoy the
Fingers
merge.
crossed for the merge. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.